Hi, friends. This is Dr. Arpita Gupta Dipalma, and you're listening to my podcast, From Pissed Off to Poised. This show is for busy women physicians and professionals just like you who are ready to take control of their emotions while learning how to excel in juggling all the things they are responsible for in life. It's for overextended mamas who are trying to figure out how to work smarter, not harder. It's for multitasking women who are tired of playing the role of the angry and resentful air traffic controller, who simply want to learn how to create a life that is more calm, intentional, and joyful for themselves. My goal is to help you learn how to eliminate the overwhelm and maintain your composure in high-stress situations that you face with the demands in your day-to-day life. Because I get you guys, this was totally me. You are not alone. I invite you to embark on your journey of transformation with me. Enjoy the listen. Hi guys, welcome back to this episode. I am excited to be here today to talk to you a little bit about building that mental muscle memory, how we can make this a new automatic response for us to go to the pathways that we want when we find that we've become activated. But before we jump into today's episode, I want to just revisit real quick what we've talked about in the past few episodes. And what I noticed is I talked a lot about how anger can look like outbursts or outward reactions to people or situations when we encounter things that kind of set us off. But what I also maybe didn't really stress is that for some people, their anger response might actually be the opposite of what you would think anger would look like. And even though it might be more involuted or calm or introverted per se, it's still not necessarily productive. So, for example, if you grew up seeing your parents yell when they were angry, you may now think that you can't feel angry because then you'll act angry. And therefore, you don't allow yourself to really process the emotion at all. This ultimately is just simply resisting any anger or frustrated negative emotions that you're feeling. And we've talked about this, but to revisit, what happens when we resist? When we resist something, it persists and it often comes back stronger. So when we're resisting feeling the anger out of fear of what it might look like outwardly to other people, we're actually causing it to last longer within us and within the entire universe per se. It's going to still come out at some time. So I just wanted to bring that up because I want to point out that the expression of anger can look very different in very different people. Some people have outward reactions. Some people kind of bottle it up and hold it all in. Some people just go and kind of shut down and be just with themselves. It's very, very different with how it presents with different people. So the work for each of us is to notice how it's showing up for you and then decide if you want to make some changes without beating yourselves up along the way, along that journey of change. We all know that despite the results of our reactions, we have regrets after the fact. And it happens over and over and over. Yet at times I caught myself thinking, why can't I stop doing it? Right? I don't like the way it feels. I don't like the way that I showed up and I'm embarrassed and regret it. But why can't I stop in the heat of the moment? We are practicing. We are learning new habits, and these habits are going to take time to implement and become automatic. Just like the reactions that we had with the anger over all these years have now become the automatic go-to, it's going to take time and energy and effort to build that new pathway. Practice is going to make you better. It's not going to make you perfect. I want you to have that awareness that we're building this new mental muscle. We are getting better at doing it, but you may not be perfect at it. Your learned, automatic, familiar responses might currently look like you getting angry or being reactionary to varying situations in your life. It's developed over time, sometimes since you were a child. So those neural pathways now that we are developing are going to take just as much energy, probably not as much time, and it's going to become your new automatic reaction. Trust the process and practice. Catch yourself. Even just building that awareness, that's the biggest step in making that change. These new neural pathways will gradually become stronger and thicker, and the old ones will begin to weaken and fade away. And they may not ever fully go away. And we'll talk about that a little bit because that's why the setbacks happen. They will happen. It's an automatic pathway that you've always had there. We're diminishing it by building this new one, but it's still there. So when you are stretched thin and a bomb is dropped, your anger shit's going to come out, and it's normal. We're going to potentially revert to old behaviors even after you've made all this progress. And all of that is okay. It happens. The goal here is to recognize that it's happened even after the fact, be vulnerable, accept it, and go and apologize. I would say what I would like for you to do is when you do find that you have reverted to an old behavior or an old reaction that you're not proud of and you don't want to continue, or that you felt like you'd already overcome, allow yourself now the time to go back and revisit what happened in your mind, to process the emotion, whether it be the anger or the underlying emotion, without having the reaction. And consider how you could handle it better next time. How can you plan in advance for the next time when the situation comes up? This is the process of building that mental muscle. Okay, let's give an example. I've had a really hard day. I've had a lot of things that I've had to put on my plate and get taken care of. And I come home and the kids still haven't done their chores. The house is a mess. The dog peed on the carpet because nobody let him out. Why am I the only one that can do anything around here? Okay, that's an old thought. It's an old automatic behavior. I'm the only one that ever does anything around here. It's ingrained in your brain. And so when you've been stretched thin already with all the other things that have happened throughout the day, your brain is more likely to go back to that old way of thinking because it remembers it. It's automatic. It's trying to keep you safe. So next time, when you have the day that you've had, the hellish day of all the things, on your way home, think, all right, I'm stretched thin. I've planned for this. I know this is going to happen. And so I'm going to take a 5-minute break before I walk into that house and just take some breaths, because it's not going to be imperfect inside my house. It's going to be a mess, probably. Dinner's not going to be made, and I'm ready for it. What's the worst that's going to happen if we just walk in, it's a mess, and we call somebody like DoorDash to come deliver us our dinner tonight? How do you plan in advance so that when those situations come up, it's not the urgency of having to troubleshoot and figure it out in the heat of the moment? I'm going to give you another analogy regarding building your mental muscle that I learned from the Positive Intelligence course with Shirzad Amin. This was also another course that you guys might want to take a look into for your own sake, but it talks about our saboteurs and our sage. And the saboteurs, mainly the judge being the main saboteur, are 9 components that we have within our bodies, within our minds, of how we respond to situations in life. And the saboteurs, as you can tell by the name, don't always help us. They're not necessarily our friend. The sage, on the other hand, are the 5 components that help us show up and be productive. So there's a lot of talk with regards to sage and saboteur in those modules with that program. And I've incorporated some of the main concepts here regarding anger that I found were helpful for me. So they refer to an analogy about putting your hand on a hot stove. So when you think about a child and they put their hand on a hot stove, how long do they actually need to get that pain message to the brain? It takes a second, not very long. And within that second, they've gotten enough information to know that that's a negative sensation and I'm going to not do that again, right? I'm going to let that pain go because it's not worth it. I'm not going to need to put my hand there again to feel it again to verify that that's what happened, right? So we all have the self-saboteurs in our mind who keep us in the cycle of replaying our disappointments and our anxieties over and over again. That's the problem with the saboteur. So even though physically in that scenario, when we're putting our hand on the hot stove, it only takes once to remember, we have these saboteurs in our mind that keep reliving the negative things that happen to us, where we're essentially beating ourselves up. I'm disappointed and I'm anxious and I'm having these other concerns or negative emotions that I'm having, we're beating ourselves up. So disappointment over the setback of having that anger response that you've had is only going to be useful for about 10 seconds until you switch and have this curiosity to learn from why you were set off again. And that's the point here. Your saboteur is going to want to beat you up and say, gosh, you've been practicing the anger protocol for so long and you still can't handle it. You still don't have it under control. That's not helpful for you. It's not productive. It's not moving you forward. Instead, think, thank you for that notice. I recognize here that this is an area I'm going to work on. How do I want to plan in advance for the next time I'm exposed to this situation? Another analogy is feeling stress over an important presentation or something that you're having to deliver. it's not really of benefit. There's a little bit of benefit at the beginning to get you prepared, to give you that adrenaline rush, to help you be present and show up the way you need to. But after about 10 seconds of that kind of stress, it's not productive for you anymore, and it might actually hinder your performance. So this is the same scenario where whenever we find ourselves having this negative feeling or reaction, like the regret of how we were showed up, instead of moving forward, if we're having that negative feeling or reaction for more than 10 seconds, try doing these couple of steps. Number one, pause and ask yourself, I've already heard this message before. I know I'm beating myself for not being able to get this perfect, but there's not really any value with me continuing to remind myself and beat myself up about it. And then step two, I want you to laugh and just giggle and say, you know what? I've got it. Thank you, brain, for offering me that I sucked at the anger protocol yesterday. And now I'm moving on, and I'm going to figure out how I'm going to prevent that from happening again. Make a joke out of it for yourself. I screwed that shit up yesterday pretty well. I really didn't show up the way I wanted to. And guess what? I learned why. I'm going to build some awareness on why that happened again and work towards not making it so profound the next time, making it a better reaction or response for me the next time. Take your hand off the stove, right? Life is going to be full of challenges where that's the hot stove. We can either continue to beat ourselves up for not doing it perfectly, or we can grow and learn from it, take it as an opportunity to build the awareness. For me, what I remember, this is a big one for me, when I overstretch myself or when I'm spread thin, my anger shit's going to come out. I know it. So ask yourself when that happened, if and how you can prepare better ahead of time for the next time you are overstretched. Another question I ask myself is, what will staying angry over this really do for me? Will it help me in any way? We are the only ones that get to feel that anger, that suffer from the anger. We are the only ones that are impacted by the decreased productivity and efficiency when we're angry. We are the only ones that are showing up in a way that diminishes the respect and how we portray ourselves with others. And we know it. It's just catching ourselves in the heat of the moment. So when we have those setbacks, recognizing why they happened, and then building a new protocol, shifting your protocol a little, building other scenarios for how you're going to prep in advance so that you're getting better each time. When your emotion is high, your intelligence is low. And I think I've said that a couple of times, right? So we are building that mental muscle by doing these steps. I'm going to end with one of my favorite quotes. It reads, I never knew how strong I was until I had to forgive someone who wasn't sorry and accept an apology I never received. This quote, it really is impactful for me because this told me that I have this anger that I harbor sometimes around situations that have happened in my life. But I am the only one that's suffering when I choose to continue to feel that way. And I can choose to forgive for my own sake. I can feel the healing for my own sake when I do that and not necessarily even have to tell anybody. This is the growth that we have here, learning about anger and how to process the feelings and how to develop the protocols. This is the growth because the crux of the anger is us having those underlying emotions that we're afraid to feel. We're going to process through them, and then we're going to learn how to forgive for our own sake so that we feel better, that we are being more productive, and we are showing up in the way that we want to. Part of this work is, like I've mentioned, having that kindness, that compassion for yourself so that you can be vulnerable. You can be willing to make a change by communicating in a way that fosters that connection. I'm going to attach a little PDF to this episode. It was put out there by Lindsay Bremen from her lecture on attachment at the Allender Center. And she talks about rupture and repair. And rupture is inevitable. This is where we have the falling out with other individuals, where we have that opportunity for potential reconnection, but only if we allow for it. And repair, as you can imagine, is when we go back and say, I'm sorry. But there's so many nuances with this, with the rupture and repair. And what she talks about is how we tend to play it safe. We feel comfortable by just like not doing anything when there's been a rupture, that we are almost a little bit hesitant or apprehensive to reach out and say, I'm sorry. And that is us kind of playing it safe. And ultimately, this leads to the shallow, unsatisfying relationships. So if you think about relationships that you have with your friends or maybe some of your family members or colleagues where it's kind of surface level, they don't feel really deep and connected. It's because we oftentimes choose to play it safe and not take the extra step when we know that there's been a rupture. So instead, what we can try to do is lean into that vulnerability and work towards making more of a repair. And she goes on to talk about how repair is more than just saying, I'm sorry, because that's so easy to do. It's so easy to say, I'm sorry, without it really coming from the heart, without it really coming from a place of being genuine. So when we want to create repair after a rupture with an individual, it really helps to kind of show that you mean it. And the way we do that is by naming what happened in the apology, okay, and owning your contribution to that rupture, how you showed up and how that really wasn't maybe you being your best self. And then you can go on to explain what you perceive as the impact of how you behaved or how you reacted in that moment. And then also listen to their contribution, their perspective on what happened with that interaction. This is allowing us to realize that it takes two to tango. And a lot of times when we want to create that repair, one person making that first step is what leads to and opens up the platform for the other person to also have the vulnerability to move towards that repair. And so this really allows for us to say, I'm sorry in a much more deeper way, a way that allows for true repair and allows for true connection, which fosters relationships that are so much more satisfying and so much more deeper and so much more genuine. So I want you to consider this. I'll attach that PDF that kind of summarizes all this to this episode as well. But I also want you guys to know that we are in a very crazy time today. I know today is Christmas holiday and many of you celebrate. And when we are in this time of year, when we're around so many other individuals and people and personalities, it is normal and common to become activated and get set off. So use this time as an opportunity to build your awareness around what's setting you off or what things don't really align with you so that you can decide how you want to show up the next time you encounter it. What things you want to put in place, what changes you want to make, what boundaries you want to instill so that you can live your most peaceful, joyous, intentional life in the moment. All right, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this episode. It's practice. Practice makes us better. It never makes us perfect. So if we can understand that and not strive for perfection, we have that taste of freedom. Have a wonderful holiday. Happy early New Year, and we will see you next week. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of From Pissed Off to Poised. Remember, transformation is a journey, not a destination. So enjoy the ride. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review From Pissed Off to Poised on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback supports my mission to get this podcast out to help other women physicians and professionals like you on their path to creating a more peaceful life with more intention and more joy. I enjoy reading every message I get with your input and feedback on my journey, so keep them coming. And if you have a friend who might enjoy the listen, please share this episode and show with them. Lastly, if you want to learn more about my coaching programs and course offerings, check out my website at www.thoughtworkmd.com. Feel free to reach out to me to learn more about investing in yourself through one-to-one coaching so you can start living the life you've always wanted. This show is for general educational and entertainment purposes only. Life coaching is not a substitute for therapy or medical treatment.